Hello, and welcome to episode 84 of the Circling Seattle Sports podcast. This is the 24th installment in the Seattle interview series. Today, I am joined by Miranda Nild, member, of the Thailand women's national team and represented Thailand at the 2019 FIFA Women's World Cup in France. Helped Thailand qualify for the 2019 Women's World Cup in France with a fourth place finish at the 2018 AFC Women's Asian Cup. Pac-12 All-Academic Honorable Mention 2016 and Cal Berkeley alum. How have you been? How has Sweden been? How have you taken time to adjust to that? I'm sure that's kind of an interesting experience for you. For those who don't know, she's on loan from the OL Reign in Sweden, and I would be remiss to try and pronounce the name of the club. So I would let you try do that because I'm sure you know a lot better than I do. But how have things been for you since you got over to Sweden?
It's been really cool. I think that's overall the best way to put it. It's a lot of growth. I feel like I'm doing here. Just like immersing myself into the new culture and new environment has taken some time, which makes sense. But yeah, it's been really cool overall.
So I want to get back to sort of beginnings here, get away from Sweden for the moment. What was your recruiting process like before heading to Cal? What steps were taken in order to lead you to Cal Berkeley?
Well, I was trying to figure out what kind of college I wanted to go to. And I knew that I wanted to go to a big school in California. And that was kind of like all I really knew. And then I was like, okay, like, do I want to be in LA or do I want to be, at home? And I think I just kind of wanted to be home. So I kind of looked to like different colleges like Santa Clara, Stanford, and Berkeley. And those are like my top three choices, which have been, really awesome to even, consider. And I chose Berkeley at the end because financially they were helping me out the most, and that was the one that I think I had envisioned when I said like big school in California, but like I didn't really realize that up until like after I committed. I was like, this is 100% the school that I wanted to go to. I'd never like pinpointed it. So yeah.
So it sounded like it worked out there. Was there any time you thought about a school outside of California, or was it always kind of just looking at the state of California?
I feel like I must have told a lot of people, like my coaches at the time, that I wanted to go to school in California because I was only, maybe like besides one school in Arkansas, I was like offered through majority of California schools. So I think
It's kind of
well,
made sense.
yeah.
So as someone, who's spent a good amount of time in California and played Pac-12 soccer, did those things help give you an idea of what playing up in Tacoma for the Reign might be like location and environment wise? Or so basically, did you already have an idea of what spending time in Washington would be like?
Yeah, I think you know, I feel like the West Coast kind of like speaks for itself in that way. Plus, and on top of that, like playing in the Pac-12 helped a lot because we went up there and played UW and Washington State and all of them. So I think that kind of with that exposure, I already was familiar with the area. Plus, I think that is besides the Thorns, I guess they're the closest, you know, team to me.
It's kind of interesting that that's the way it is. You'd figure that we might see that, but I'm sure that's a
Yeah.
point where we'll see expansion similar to the way
Yeah.
the WNBA is. I'm sure there's a lot of talented women out there that aren't on a roster right now, and that's just unfortunate because of the way it is. But oh
Yeah.
no, I believe there's an expansion team in LA. Yeah, okay. I remember seeing the logo.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Almost
Mm-hmm.
blanked on that.
Yeah.
But I think that's exciting, and I figured I'm like, why is that not a thing? And obviously that's coming, but
Slowly,
um
surely.
yeah, exactly. Hoping for more of that here soon because similar to the WNBA, there's a lot of people I'm sure that just don't make the roster, and that's unfortunate just because of the amount of teams that there are.
Yeah.
But like you said, slowly but surely. Um, Going to Thailand here, how difficult was it for you to prepare for national team play while finishing school? Now, I remember reading that and I was like, I struggle with finishing school normally. So I can only imagine what sort of weight that put on you. How were you able to, you know, juggle that, and what helped you to, handle everything?
Yeah. So probably could have graduated early and took a bunch of like extra classes in my first semester of my senior year, but I decided that that wasn't, what I wanted to do. So I stayed and kind of only had like a few classes. I only had three. And luckily I was able to talk to my professors and then write my thesis while I was in Thailand training. But before I even got to Thailand, I had to do a lot of individual workouts, which is like really hard, preparing for the World Cup. And I think that it was super challenging, but I think that, I was obviously really motivated because, it's like one chance at a wonderful opportunity, So I think that with that, like it being a World Cup, it was obviously really motivating to even get out there and train. But I was very grateful once I got to Thailand that everything was like already in process. It was just like in between the double days, I would have to go to a coffee shop and like finish my thesis.
Jeez.
But yeah, it's
What do
good to
you
look back on.
I remember reading about that. I was like, man, I can only imagine, especially because national team play, and having to juggle that. So more so about Thailand, what do you remember most from the time that you spent there, and what do you miss about Thailand specifically?
Well, I miss my teammates. I think that, the hardest part about being like not currently living in the country is really tough, because I feel like when I'm in the country, I speak way more Thai than if I'm like somewhere else in a different country, because then I obviously fall back on English a lot. And so even through like I can speak Thai, I can read Thai very slowly, but like writing is really difficult for me. So like unless
Hmm.
I call my teammates on the phone, like we don't really talk, and that's like super sad. Yeah.
So it's kind of difficult to keep those connections in a way, just because that's something that might be a little bit more difficult now. Is that something that you hope to work on a little bit more, in a certain point in time?
Yeah, I mean, I bought Harry Potter in Thai so that I can try and
Oh,
teach, like I know the alphabet and all this stuff. It's just like practicing reading.
yeah.
And so I'm really trying hard at that, but it takes me about an hour to read a page. So it's really slow.
Well, to go back to something you said, slowly but surely, I think it's something you
Exactly.
just got to
Yeah,
work on.
exactly.
That is interesting to see how that goes, though. You spend time with those women, in such a big stage, uh, you know, with national team play. And I'm sure it's difficult, but at the end of the day, luckily we do have those means of communication like phones, but it is cool to sort of hear that process about. When you said Harry Potter, I was like, what does that have to
Like,
do with it?
what?
I was like, what does that mean? But no, it makes more sense, and it is interesting to see that. So, with that being said, are you able to put into words the things that you felt and the thoughts that you had when you were called up in 2007 to join Thailand? What sort of, how did you feel at the time, and how were you able to process that?
Yeah, it was a crazy, like offer that they were asking me to come to like, a full national team camp. And especially, well, it was in 2017. So it was like when I was in college. And so it was like going from one competitive, environment to another. So I thought it was like luckily like a good time to like jump in, because we had just finished season, and I was really excited to even like embrace, I feel like, more of that side of my culture, which I feel like was really, really cool. Um, but yeah, the first experience was a little daunting, like when you go in there, you don't know anybody. I'm like practicing this language that I haven't spoken like 4 or 5 years. I'm like, oh my God. But yeah, once I got there, I think kind of like soccer speaks for itself. So that was really nice.
Yeah, it sounds like, trial by fire. It's like, oh yeah, you're in college. Come on, come join us. And then it's
Yeah,
like, oh,
exactly.
interesting to see, how those experiences go for players. Because I mean, I might read an article about how that happened, but I don't know how you felt. I don't know what you're
Yeah.
thinking. It might
Right.
be I'm sitting on campus and all of a sudden, oh yeah, we want you to come join us. It's like, okay. Uh, so no,
I
it is
know.
interesting to hear how that
Yeah.
goes, but I'm sure, over time, kind of get into the groove with it. And like you said, start speaking for yourself with the way that you play.
Yeah.
And, I'm sure the language at the time, it comes back, I'm sure, and you learn about it. So like you said, keep working on Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Um, just in general, what sort of things does playing for the Thailand national team mean to you? Just like in, any other national, well, how are you able to sort of speak to what that means to you, whether it's, pride or just the importance of, the little girls and boys who look up at you? Are you able to sort of kind of put that into perspective for those obviously like me who are not playing for a national team?
Um, yeah, I mean, obviously I'm like beyond grateful to even have the opportunity to represent Thailand. Like I know it means a lot to my dad who is Thai, and I know that like he was beyond proud of that. And I think also just kind of like the exposure. Like I know the US women's national team is like stacked. Like they're absolutely stacked. And I know there's a lot of girls who are really, really good who happen to be mixed. And like it's cool that they might be able to get the opportunity to try out with another country if they, the other half of them, if they want to. And I think that that would be a really cool environment, just kind of like exposing like American soccer, I guess, throughout the world.
It's interesting. I spoke with Sofia Huerta about her time because I was reading about how she spent some time with the Mexico national team, and she said it just she had spent more time in the U.S. and she was grateful for her time and with that national team in Mexico, but it just there it was hard to, I guess, sort of have the roots there. So it is interesting to see the different national teams, and like you said, with people being mixed, I'm sure there are people who could look at a couple different roads, and even outside of the U.S., I know there's just so much talent. Like with the NWSL, there's so much talent around the world. So it's like you said, it's really interesting to see that stage, and um, I'm sure it's interesting to know that there's so many people around the world, and even in Thailand, obviously, that I'm sure look up to you in that regard. So it's really cool to think about that. Something as I was reading about your time in Thailand was I don't remember the specific article, and I apologize for that, but it was there was one with photography involved, I believe.
Yeah.
How did you come to enjoy photography? I know on Instagram, I think you and a friend went out to a park and took some photos. So how did you come to enjoy photography? And is that something that, whenever soccer is done for you, is that something that you want to pursue after that?
Photography in general, I don't think I'm very good at. Do I like it? Yes, I do. I think it's super entertaining. But like I don't think that that I could do it for a career or anything like that. It's more just like fun stuff. And that experience, I thought the article that you're referring to was with Goal Click. And they kind of gave like a bunch of national team players from all around the world like a disposable camera. And I thought that one was so cool because it was just like life through their perspective. But yeah, I try to be artsy because like I'm on Instagram, but like it's so hard in general. But yeah, no, I definitely enjoy it, but I wouldn't say I'm good at it.
More of a fun thing to take part. I didn't even know. So were they legitimate, like the disposable cameras? Wow,
Yeah.
that's cool. That's kind of
They
cool to
like
think
sent me
about.
three and they were like, take many photos. Like, we just want to see like life from your point of view before the World Cup. And I was like, this is so cool.
Oh yeah, no, that's I think that's really cool. I think I do remember clicking some of the other articles and just taking a look at them. I was like, huh, I
Yeah.
did not think that they were disposable cameras though. I'm just thinking about
Yeah.
being younger and using those things and getting the dang film developed. So that is cool to
Exactly.
think about. Um, I want to transition to the rain here. What were your first impressions of the club? Obviously, like we said, you spent time in California in the West Coast, so What were your first impressions of the club as a whole?
I thought they were just ridiculously professional. Like that's the best way to put it. I thought that the club in general was just like very warm and welcoming to like even me as like a trialist, I felt like, a nobody coming to try out for the team. And I think that they made me feel like super welcomed. And that was including like the staff and the girls and everyone there. And I think that that speaks a lot to the club, that I think that they're like a really tight knit group. And I think that that's like really, really cool to see, because I'm not sure if that's like around everywhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that is something that's, I'm sure is important because, when you look at a locker room or a club, obviously, any sort of team, I'm sure that that closeness is something that will obviously help you win games and just help you be better as a club. So
Yeah.
when you have dysfunction, obviously that doesn't help you. So yeah, I think that is something that's, I'm sure not every club has that. Speaking of that group of women, do you have a teammate from that team that you consider to be the funniest, that you view as the funniest teammate on the Reign?
Um, that's such a hard question because I feel like they're all like extrovertedly hilarious. Um, yeah, that's so hard. I would have to choose between Leah, Bethany, or God, now I'm trying to like actually think. uh Bethany or Z, probably between that group.
And then from that question, do you think that anybody in particular on the team has the best style? Because as of the time this is coming out, I've spoken with all members of the three of Bethany, Cosette, and Leah, who all wore the tie dye. So
Yeah.
do you have somebody from the team that you think has the best style, or do you have anybody that a couple of people that you want to appreciate their style? Because I know Z had some cool outfits. I know that she was
Yeah.
someone that Leah identified as having the best style. But in your opinion,
Yeah.
is that anybody different, or would you agree?
I would probably agree. I feel like Instagram highlights the ones who, pop off pretty well and pretty accurately. Yeah. I would feel like Instagram has got it on point. But I'm all the way over here, so I can't exactly tell you.
What are your thoughts on the current Reign roster as it stands? Just because obviously, by the time that this is coming out, this is being recorded on the 27th. So
Okay.
yesterday, Rose Lavelle joined the team, and that's a big thing, as well as some big additions coming
Yeah.
in June. Uh, what are your thoughts on that, and how they might all fit together, and what if there are challenges in putting that together? Because I know, as somebody who's been in professional sports, you know that um, it's interesting to see how these rosters get put together in any aspect.
Yeah.
At any point, a coach and a front office is going to have to see
Tough
how all
decision.
these pieces are going to fit into the puzzle. So, what are your thoughts on that roster and the women of this group?
I think right now we have an incredible group. I mean, from all parts of the world. And I think that that's like really amazing. I think it's even more amazing that all of these people are competing to be in, the starting 11 or the traveling team. And I think that, from a point of view, it's like as a staff, I'm sure it's really great because then, you get to the cream of the crop. That's already the cream of the crop. And I
Good
think that,
problem to have.
yeah, it's going to be a problem for them, but definitely like a good problem, not like a bad problem.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I don't mean I'm sure there is an extent of you that does miss it. I know there's part of you also that enjoys being in Sweden, and I don't mean to be make you miss everything. But what do you miss most about being with the club? Because from what I can tell, it seems that you really enjoyed your time there, and
Yeah,
obviously right now that's not what you're doing. But what would you say that you miss most about OL Reign?
definitely miss the girls. I feel like I can't even name like one hilarious person. And I think that
Yeah.
speaks for itself, like just going to practice every day was hilarious. And I think that, that's a pretty sick environment to be in.
It's been like you were saying with a good problem to have. It's been really cool to see the additions, obviously, but
Yeah.
just the way that, like you were saying again, how tight knit of a club this is, and
Yeah.
it's been really exciting just to see how this all comes into play, and just for the regular season to continue. But now I do want to get to Sweden. Um, I'm not going to attempt to pronounce the club. I'm going to let you go first. How has your time been with the club so far? Um, and what sort of things have you seen that are different from playing in the U.S. as well as playing with the Thailand national team? How have you, if I had to have you compare the three different destinations there, um, what differences or similarities have you seen?
Um, so to pronounce the name, first of all, it's Kristianstad. I think, I think my Swedish accent is good enough, but um, yeah, they're a cool group of girls as well. And I think that has been really nice. Lou used to play for them, and I think that, she told me a lot of really good stuff about it, like when I started to come here, and it's all been really helpful and really great because like all of it's true, like all of the girls are really welcoming and whatnot, and that's been really great for me. I would say the one of the differences is that it's definitely more tactical here, if that makes sense. I feel like on the US it's very like 1v1 based,
Hmm.
like a lot of like athleticism type vibe, and I
Yeah.
think that here it's very like pass and move into the right place type thing. It's more like, I feel like the best way to think it's like more like chess here, in the
Yeah.
sense of like you have to move certain pieces to create certain spaces. And I think that it's been a really cool experience to kind of like learn more in that sense, and kind of like grow as a player, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it is interesting to hear, how that is uh compared to, over here in the US. Um, what sort of things have you learned about Sweden that you say are your favorite things that you've learned so far, whether it's been surprises about Sweden as a whole or cultural things or even, foods that you might have liked? What sort of things have surprised you and do you enjoy the most at this point in time? Because I know there still will be more time. So
Yeah.
at this state,
I would probably say that it is it's called the fika, which is like all Swedish people do and love doing. And it's basically going to get coffee and like snacks to eat with friends
hmm.
and talk. And I think that the fact that they have one word for that, definition
Oh.
speaks volumes on like what, like the how they react as a culture. And I think that is really cool. And that's something I've been enjoying a lot because like I'm a coffee person, as I'm sure everyone else is. But yeah, I think it's pretty great because I mean, like during the workday, the girls and everyone will just like take multiple fikas
Oh,
like per day.
wow.
And I think that is like much different, yeah, than what it is at home. Because at home it's just like, you have one coffee, maybe two, but here it's like a very constant, consistent thing that like everyone does, which I think is a really, really cool.
I mean, even in Seattle, yeah, the coffee consumption is one thing, but I mean, multiple times a day, that's interesting to hear.
Yeah.
Um, if I had to, if I don't know how much of a jersey person you are, a cosmetic thing, but is there a favorite jersey you've played into this time? Because I don't know. I think some of them are cool. I like the newer rain kits. But if I had to make you pick, is there a jersey that you've played in that you find your favorite, or at the end of the day, do you just put them on and you're playing in them? Do you not really look at the what they are?
Fine. I feel like, yeah, it's so hard. I mean, I feel like I don't really, unless it's like a super ridiculous design. I like, almost all jerseys that I'm in. I probably would like the Thailand one the most just because, sentimental value.
Yeah.
But Yeah, that's a hard one.
And then this is something that I'm interested to hear just because, it's something that you would know a lot better than I would just because it's something that, you've experienced. But um, this year's been a little bit better for some of the major media outlets and putting, these women's sports on television just to sort of link it in with the podcast. The UW softball team will play Oklahoma on ABC, which is the first time that there's ever been softball on ABC. The WNBA signed a big contract with Google, I believe, to broadcast some of their games. And they have a really good system where they've got their app. And if you've got the league pass, which is only like $16, which is pretty good for a league pass, you can watch all of the games in their app. I know
Wow.
it's a little different with the NWSL. You have to have like Paramount Plus or a CBS or Twitch.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on obviously the NWSL and their accessibility? Because I spoke with Leia Pruitt about it, and she said people have asked, how can I watch the games? And she's like, well, I can't.
Yeah.
It's hard to really pinpoint that, as well as how I don't know how much you pay attention to it, because I know I'm sure it's some to an extent you have to pay attention to what's going on in your current situation in Sweden. But your thoughts on how the media is doing this year with putting these women's sports out, whether it is WNBA or NWSL.
I think the NWSL has really put like they're building a platform, and I think that
Mm,
seeing that has been really, really awesome. I think that obviously each year they're stepping up their game a little bit more and a little bit more. Obviously, as an international viewer, I'm on Twitch a lot, which is really nice. Because it's just like really easy and convenient to get to. I know that being in the States, it's a little harder between the balance of like CBS and Paramount Plus, but I think the more exposure we get, the better. So I think that even if it is on two different platforms, like I think that more people are going to end up watching it, even if like you just happen to have Paramount Plus and you just happen to see that, the Rain is playing Portland or whatever. I just think that the more we get, viewers, even if they're random, like the better it is for us. And obviously, I feel like the WNBA has been around a bit longer than we have. And I think that, we're kind of like taking notes and learning from them. And I think that that's been really, really helpful as well, because, they've kind of broken already one part of the glass ceiling. And so we're like working on the soccer one. And I think that that's really cool.
yeah, no, I did forget that the Twitch part is more of a because I think I did use the Twitch aspect for a different match. I don't think it was a rain match. But to your point, it is interesting to hear that to think about that part of it. Some people, oh, I've got Paramount Plus, which is $5, by the way. If you can put up $5 if you're watching this and you want to do that, it's $5. Um, I would hope that it would be really cool if the NWSL had an app like that where it's like, okay, I've got all the scores here, I've got my headlines, and this
Yeah.
one thing at the bottom has games in it, and I can just go here
Yeah.
because it puts the different feeds in. Because I know with the WNBA, it's like CBS in Seattle, it's Joe TV for the Storm, are different ones, and they put them all the same feeds. And if it's not blacked out in your area, I could watch Indiana play Atlanta. Well, I don't know who's playing
On
today,
that.
but so
Yeah.
it is interesting to hear, from obviously from the international standpoint right now,
Yeah.
um, but also just to hear from, that's the goal, is to tell these stories and try to get as much of the stories out about, you, and as the different interviews I do, just because, say somebody wants to learn more about you. That is the goal, to have that, because with some of the athletes I've spoken with, I go to research and there's a lack of,
Knowledge.
content, and
Yeah,
that's
I
a
agree.
problem because,
Mhm.
if somebody, like say somebody's watching you on Twitch, or obviously the Rain on Twitch, and they want to learn more, they say, hey, I really like Miss Neld here. And I go online, I can't find it.
Yeah.
That's sort of one of the goals here. And well, I say I'm the only one here. What I'm
All
trying to do
viewers.
here. Yeah.
Yeah.
As well as just trying to see what you guys think, because at the end of the day, I think you guys should have a lot more of a input on it, Because I mean, you're the ones playing. You're the ones who are probably going to know more about, the fan base and how to get it out there. But like you were saying, I think it's some steps are being taken, and as we continue to go back to what you said earlier, slowly but surely. But I think with this, I'd hope more so that there's a little bit more of a sense
Urgency.
of urgency. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
So
agreed.
uh, like I said, it's always something I try to learn from because I am technically part of the media. So I do want to, hear from that point of view and hear what you guys are actually thinking instead of me trying to make a guess or infer what's going on. So
Yeah, I agree.
with that
I
being,
also think that social media has really been helpful for that, just in terms of like Instagram. Like each player actively uses their Instagram, which, is something that a lot of players internationally might not have or use it as often. And I think that that is really important. Like even the Instagrams for all the NWSL teams have been like, the game has been amazing. And like I think that everyone's been stepping up, and I think that that is so important and so crucial for the game, because if you don't know anything, like the last thing you can do is just check Instagram, and then you'll know they'll have literally every detail available. And I just think, the easier it is to access that information, the easier it is to get viewers. And that's cool.
oh yeah, no, and the club has been very active and they're very them as well as a lot of the players are very good with fan engagement, which I think, like you said, that's a big thing.
Mm.
I use Instagram more, but for the podcast I've used Twitter, and I remember watching the Portland game and tweeting about it, and I pissed off some Thorns fans, so that I was like, oh, this is a good and a bad thing.
That's good.
But so yeah, I think social
Yeah.
media does play a big impact in it, and it's like, because some people might just be looking on their phone and
Yeah.
that might pop up and it's like, oh, there's some more eyes on it that might not have been on it if you didn't cover the game at
Exactly.
all, if you were just a club
Yeah.
that puts out a halftime score and a final score, so it is
Right.
good to see that. um with that being said, is there anything that you would like to put out? I do put socials in the description always, just so people can find you out on there, but is there anything else that you want to put out there?
Um, no, not really. Just my social medias, I guess.
Oh yeah, I got you. So uh yeah, no, it's always really fun to hear, from the players and hear their stories. And again, that is the goal of these interviews, is to tell these stories. And so that more so that when you are done with this interview, that you know more about whoever I'm sitting here speaking with. So I want to
Mm.
thank you for taking time out of your day. I know it is about, is it 8 o'clock now over there? Yeah.
8
So I mean, I'm sure you had I don't know how many coffees you had today, but don't want to hold you for too much of your time. So I want to thank you for coming on, and excited to see you back over here when the time comes. But I know obviously it's Sweden time now, so interesting to see that, and maybe more of the photo shoots like the last one on Instagram.